Move to approve.
Is there a second? Being none, since it's been moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, moved, approval of the minutes. Election of the 2025 Chair of the EMS District 2 Board. So as I'm the previous chair, I'm convening this meeting and I would call for a motion for nominations for EMS District 2 Board Chair. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to move to nominate Sue Marshall to continue as the commissioner for EMS 2.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, acclamation. Thank you. And so moving on to update and discussion of items. At our earlier meeting last year, there was a discussion when we were looking at the bylaws of possibly adding an additional member to this board, because as a board of three, it becomes, we can't ever talk to each other. It becomes just awkward, and that might be good to have a little broader representation. So it was determined to bring that back here in January with the new year. And some of the consideration at the time was whether or not to have an additional city from EMS District 2 area, or whether to have someone from the fire districts represented, either a chief or one of their commissioners. So I'll just open that up for discussion at this time. And Deanne noted that if we change the bylaws, we will have to, not that we can't do this, we can totally do this, change our ILAs with the cities, well, and the bylaws. So keep that in mind. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think we had spoke a bit about this at the end of last year, and it's become very aware. I've become very aware, and it's become very evident that it's difficult to have productive conversations outside of the meeting based on the quorum, in only having 3 representatives. So my thoughts were to bring a couple more aboard, make it a board of 5, to create our ability to have conversations outside of the public meeting on items, especially with some of the transitions that we'll be going through here in 25, looking forward to 26. It may be important to be able to do so. And so my thoughts were initially a member of another one of the representative cities. I'm not sure if we go in an alphabetical order, just like we do currently. So if we go Battleground, La Center, or if we go every other and we go Battleground, Ridgefield, and then skip to La Center and Woodland, it may be a good idea to have 2 consecutive though, so we have a little bit of transfer of knowledge as we transition through board members, and then maybe one of the fire commissioners, as long as that doesn't create any kind of conflict of interest in that.
Any other comments?
Chair, I'm brand new to this committee, so I can see though where the quorum issue would cause some problems. So I don't disagree with this decision at all.
Great. Would we need a motion, or Deb, I'm just going to look to you if there's any legal issues that we need to be considering as we move forward?
Hi, Deb Wexelblatt, attorney for EMS District 2. So, in terms of our,
Oh, no, you were on.
press it one more time. Okay. I'm on now.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you couldn't hear me when I identified myself. Deb Wexelblatt, attorney for EMS District 2, Clark County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. So, in terms of the bylaws, I believe I will need to circulate a revised or amended version of the bylaws 7 days prior to the next meeting. And then at that meeting, we could move forward with amending the bylaws, but not today. But I understand the board's request.
Would we make a motion today, or would we circulate the draft and then the motion and decision would come next time?
I think that it would be fine to do the motion next time once there's a proposed amendment at
And
that time.
And then you can work out the specific language and then get that out to everyone. Oh, let me just ask this. If it's someone from, a commissioner from the fire districts, is that what we are landing on, just as informal guidance from my fellow counselors?
Yes, again, as long as that doesn't create any kind of conflict of interest or anything like that, I think that would be the idea.
Great. And then if well, with any of us, if a conflict arises, that could also always be declared and recuse oneself.
And I can individually email the board members. I can't recall. I remember the idea of a fire commissioner being added last year. I think I may have rendered a legal opinion on that. I just can't recall at this time, but I'll make sure prior to circulating an amendment that I let each board member know what seems possible.
And I could be mistaken in my recollection of this as well, but I believe the initial conversation was a fire chief. And I
That might
believe
have been
that
what it
was the
was.
decision that you had kind of gave your legal opinion on. And so I think that's what led us to a commissioner versus a chief.
That sounds familiar now that
That does sound right.
reminding
We'll
me.
dust all that off and it'll be circulated and we'll bring that back to the next board meeting. Any comments, Counselor Belcott?
No, it all sounds good to me from being a newbie.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on, and Deanne, I think maybe this would be you on this next item. Give us an update on EMS system assessment request proposal.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Deanne Cordes, Contract Administrator for Clark County. Rebecca's pulled up a quick little presentation that I put together. It's just to show you some visual. Next slide, please. So as you may have remembered, we issued a request for proposal for an EMS assessment that was released on December 11th. It was due back on January 8th at 1:30. So that was last Wednesday. The plan holders list had 10 different companies that it was sent to, and we received 3 responsive proposals, and those are currently being evaluated and scored right now. So I don't have any other information except for that. The work group is meeting immediately following, and members of the work, there's a few members that were identified that are reviewing and scoring those proposals. So we will be talking about it as a group.
Thank you. Any questions of Deanne?
Oh, I have a few more. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I apologize. I have a few more slides to share.
go right ahead.
So the next steps, I just wanted to give you guys. So this is our intended timeline, and this is what we had as part of the RFP. So we're at that spot that's highlighted right there. So right now, again, we're in that review and evaluation period. We'll move into selection and recommendation from the committee, and then we'll go into contract negotiation, which I was hoping to do later this week. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties getting the proposals out because they're being evaluated by external members, external from the county. And so we're having a little bit of issues. So we might have to extend that timeline just briefly. But we were hoping a contract would start next week, Tuesday, with Monday being a holiday. So we might be a tad behind. And again, this is our intended timeline. It's not a firm, hard timeline. And then my next slide talks about the deliverables that we asked of the consultant. This is a very robust and aggressive timeline. It is subject to change. And so as you can see, we were hoping for a kickoff meeting next week. And then between then and the end of March, them doing their assessment, bringing that back to us for some key policy decisions, which will definitely affect the board. And then also helping us as part of the RFP, we wanted help putting out the ambulance RFP if that's the direction that's chosen. And then ambulance contract negotiations with an intended start date of January 1 of 2026. Again, very robust timeline, very quick timeline, is subject to change, and a lot of it depends on what the consultant's recommendation is. And I welcome any questions.
Are there any questions at this time?
Yeah, I just have one. The timeline of 3 months of an open RFP to accept, it was the last slide that we had there. Looked like May through the end of July. Is that pretty standard for an RFP, or is that a short and condensed timeline based on our condensed timeline, or is that a standardized May through July, the end of July?
That is a really great question. And I apologize. I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm going to guess, because I did have some input from some subject matter experts, I'm going to guess that's a pretty standard timeline for that. But I can get back to you.
Any other comments or questions? I would just add, the work group had requested that the county ask whether or not, well, EMS District 2 and the county ask whether or not this could be extended by some months because it is such a tight timeline. Because our contract just goes up until January 1, 2026. So it's a hard deadline. And so we'll be pursuing whether or not to soften that by a bit of an extension, but I don't have an answer today.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to be looking at future meeting frequency. And Deanne and I had discussed this, and knowing that there's a robust work group that's going to be meeting on a regular basis, whether or not there would be any decision points for this EMS District 2 board. There might not be. I know at this moment we have something for our next agenda, which would be expanding the board, changing the bylaws, and so I just tossed that out if you all would be open to some flexibility on the frequency of meetings for the actual EMS District 2 board. I welcome your comments.
Chair, since I'm unfamiliar, I'm still getting familiar with this board. What was the frequency before? Or what has it been, I should say?
Well, it's been erratic. I think the previous year and years, the EMS District 2 board very infrequently met. With the need for new ambulance contract, we have been meeting monthly, but a thought is that with the work group, there might not be decision points, and unless there's a desire to continue to meet monthly with updates or whatever, I think the work group and Deanna and I will bring forward whatever is needed in terms of your input and decision making. So I can't say. I would say that it would be good to meet next month to expand the board, and then beyond that, we could maybe play it by ear.
Sounds good to me.
I agree with that. Yeah, obviously, we do need to meet in February, and then maybe we'll have some new information from the work group and from the consultant in the firm there. And then, I don't want to necessarily quote unquote use the as needed, but if we don't have any new information or any pressing agenda items, it seems like a waste of public funds to open this room up and do this unless we have something that we really need to work on. So,
Well, and this board can decide at the conclusion of our February meeting whether or not we anticipate the need to meet again. So you all can make that call. You can do that together. Okay, so that concludes really our business. We have other items which would be fire districts update. If any of the fire districts would like to come forward and provide some comment or give us an update, now would be the time. Okay. And then just general public comment. Are there any public comments? Anyone online or in the room that would like to make public comments? Okay. So seeing none, anything remaining from our council? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.